There's a good chance you've heard of MSG before, monosodium glutamate. Maybe you've spotted it on the back of an instant noodle packet, or maybe you've been told it's something you should avoid in Chinese food. MSG has carried a reputation that ranges from a harmless kitchen ingredient to a chemical villain blamed for headaches and dizziness. But here's the question: what actually is MSG? And is it really bad for you, or has it been unfairly demonized for decades? Today, let's break down the real story of MSG, where it came from, what it does to food, and what science actually says about its safety. From humble street food to royal feasts, the journey of your favorite meals is more incredible than you know. This is the history of the dish. Let's start simple. MSG is short for monosodium glutamate. It's basically a flavor enhancer, a white crystalline powder that looks almost identical to table salt or sugar. Chemically, it's made up of sodium and glutamic acid, which is a naturally occurring amino acid. That word glutamate might sound unfamiliar, but it's everywhere. In tomatoes, mushrooms, cheese, seaweed, even in human maternal milk. In fact, glutamate is one of the key compounds responsible for the savory taste we call umami. That's the fifth basic taste alongside sweet, sour, salty, and bitter. So in a way, MSG is just a concentrated form of something our taste buds already recognize and love. MSG's story starts in Japan in the early 1900s. A chemistry professor named Kokune Ikeda was eating a bowl of kombu seaweed soup when he realized the savory depth of flavor wasn't explained by sweetness, saltiness, or bitterness. Curious, he began experimenting in his lab and managed to isolate the compound responsible, glutamate. He patented a way to produce it by extracting glutamic acid from seaweed and combining it with sodium, creating monosodium glutamate. In 1909, MSG hit the market under the brand name Ajinomoto, which literally means essence of taste. It quickly spread around the world, finding its way into kitchens and packaged foods everywhere. So why does MSG make food taste better? It has everything to do with how our taste buds perceive umami. Umami enhances the savory notes in food, making meats taste meatier, broths taste richer, and vegetables taste deeper and more satisfying. Think of MSG as a spotlight. It doesn't replace flavor, but it intensifies what's already there. That's why a pinch of MSG in a soup or stir-fry can make it feel heartier without the need for extra salt or fat. Interestingly, studies show that using MSG can actually reduce overall sodium levels in food, since MSG itself contains only about 1/3 of the sodium found in regular table salt. So in moderation, it might actually help people cut down on salt without sacrificing taste. If MSG is just a flavor enhancer, why does it have such a bad reputation? This goes back to the late 1960s, when a letter was published in a medical journal describing something called Chinese restaurant syndrome. The author claimed that after eating Chinese food, he experienced symptoms like numbness, headaches, and weakness, and he speculated that MSG was to blame. The media picked up the story, and soon MSG became public enemy number one. Restaurants started putting up signs saying no MSG to reassure customers. But here's the problem. The letter wasn't based on controlled experiments, just anecdotal observation. And when researchers actually tested MSG under scientific conditions, the evidence linking it to those symptoms was weak at best. Fast forward to now, and dozens of studies later, the verdict is much clearer. MSG is safe for most people. Regulatory bodies like the US Food and Drug Administration, the European Food Safety Authority, and the World Health Organization all classify MSG as safe to consume. Some people might be sensitive to very large doses of MSG taken on an empty stomach, which could cause mild short-term symptoms like headaches or flushing. But these effects are not common, and they don't occur at the levels typically found in food. For the vast majority of the population, MSG is no different than any other seasoning, fine in moderation and not a health hazard. It's also worth noting that the fear of MSG had a cultural component. Because the panic started with the so-called Chinese restaurant syndrome, it unfairly targeted Chinese and other Asian cuisines. Many historians and food writers argue that racism and xenophobia played a role in amplifying the stigma. Meanwhile, MSG was being used widely in American packaged foods, from potato chips to canned soups, without much complaint. So part of MSG's bad reputation isn't just about science, it's about perception and cultural bias. In recent years, there's been a movement to reclaim MSG as a perfectly normal and delicious part of cooking, especially as people rediscover its role in authentic Asian recipes. So now we come back to the main question. Should you avoid MSG or should you sprinkle it freely? The answer lies in balance. MSG isn't toxic, it isn't addictive, and it doesn't pose health risks for the average person. But just like salt, sugar, or butter, it works best in moderation. If you cook at home and want to try it, you'll find that a small amount can make a big difference in soups, stir-fries, and marinades. If you're eating out, you probably don't even notice when MSG is in a dish because it's already present in so many natural foods. Ultimately, MSG is not the villain it was once made out to be. It's simply another tool in the flavor toolbox. MSG has traveled a fascinating journey from a discovery in a Japanese lab to being vilified in the West, and finally to being reaccepted as a safe and useful ingredient. It's a reminder that sometimes our fears about food aren't based on solid science, but on misunderstandings, cultural bias, or old myths that just never died. At the end of the day, MSG is simply a way to bring out the savory depth of foods we already love. And if you've ever enjoyed a slice of pizza, a handful of chips, or a spoonful of tomato soup, chances are you've already been enjoying MSG without even realizing it. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. If you enjoyed this video, please check out our other episodes on the history of the dish. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of MSG. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories for your taste buds woven through the smallest details.